Welcome to Moments in History channel. Have you ever wondered where the idea of an empire came from? Who was the first person to unite different peoples, cities, and cultures under one banner? Today we're journeying back over 4,000 years to Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, to uncover the story of the world's very first empire, the Akkadian Empire. This isn't just a story about ancient kings and dusty ruins. It's the origin story of power, politics, and the very concept of a multi-ethnic state that would shape the course of human history forever. Before the rise of Akkad, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was a patchwork of independent city-states. Imagine ancient Sumer, a landscape dotted with bustling cities like Ur, Uruk, and Lagash. Each city was a kingdom in itself, with its own ruler, its own army, and its own patron god. They traded with each other, they fought with each other, and they were fiercely independent. This was the world before empires, a world of localized power and constant rivalry. But all of that was about to change, thanks to one man whose origins are shrouded in legend. His name was Sargon of Akkad. According to the legends that sprang up around him, his beginnings were humble. One story, remarkably similar to the tale of Moses, claims he was born in secret, placed in a reed basket, and set afloat on the Euphrates River. He was supposedly found and raised by a gardener, a far cry from the corridors of power. But destiny, it seems, had a different plan for him. He eventually rose to become the cupbearer to the king of Kish, a powerful Sumerian city. This position was more than just serving wine. It put him right at the center of the royal court, a place of intrigue and opportunity. Sargon wasn't content to remain in the shadows. Around 2334 BCE, he seized power, establishing his own capital city, Akkad. We still haven't found the exact location of this legendary city, but its influence was about to spread across the entire known world. Sargon was not just another king of another city-state. He had a revolutionary vision to unite all of Mesopotamia under his rule. He began his campaign of conquest, leading a highly disciplined professional army. Unlike the citizen militias of the Sumerian cities, Sargon's soldiers were loyal to him alone. He marched south, conquering the great Sumerian cities one by one. He famously washed his weapons in the sea, a symbolic gesture declaring his control over the entire region, all the way to the Persian Gulf. But Sargon didn't stop there. His ambition was boundless. He pushed his campaigns west toward the Mediterranean Sea and north into modern-day Turkey. For the first time in history, a single ruler controlled a vast, diverse territory stretching from sea to sea. The Akkadian Empire was born. So, what made Akkad the world's first empire? And not just a really big kingdom. It's all about the structure. Sargon didn't just conquer, he governed. He replaced the local Sumerian rulers with loyal Akkadian governors, ensuring that power flowed directly from his capital, Akkad. This was a radical idea. He created a centralized administration to manage his new, sprawling state. He also standardized things. Think about how modern states work. We have standardized weights, measures, and taxes. Sargon was a pioneer of this. He introduced a uniform system of taxation, collecting resources from across the empire to fund his army and his building projects. He also protected and expanded trade routes, making the empire a hub of economic activity. Goods and ideas flowed freely from the lapis lazuli of Afghanistan to the timber of Lebanon. And then there was language. Sargon promoted his own language, Akkadian, as the official language of the administration. While people still spoke their local languages, like Sumerian, Akkadian became the lingua franca, the common tongue for commerce, diplomacy, and government. Imagine the efficiency this created. It was like making English the official language of a global corporation today. It unified the empire in a way that military force alone never could. The legacy of Sargon was carried on by his successors, most notably his grandson, Naram-Sin. If Sargon was the founder, Naram-Sin was the one who perfected the image of the all-powerful emperor. He was a brilliant military commander, just like his grandfather, crushing rebellions and expanding the empire's borders even further. But Naram-Sin took things a step further. He did something no Mesopotamian ruler had dared to do before. he declared himself a god. He took the title King of the Four Quarters of the World, essentially claiming dominion over everything. This wasn't just a fancy title. It was a profound political and religious statement. It elevated the emperor from a mere mortal king to a divine being, whose authority was absolute and unquestionable. We can see this shift immortalized in art. The Victory Stele of Naram-Sin is one of the most famous pieces of art from the ancient world. It shows Naram-Sin as a powerful, godlike figure, larger than all his soldiers, trampling his enemies underfoot. He wears a horned helmet, a symbol previously reserved for gods. This wasn't just a record of a military victory. It was propaganda, a masterpiece designed to project an image of divine power and imperial might. Under Naram-Sin, the empire reached its zenith, a cultural and political powerhouse. The Akkadians were innovators in more than just politics. Their art was more naturalistic and dynamic than the formal, rigid style of the Sumerians. They developed advanced record-keeping techniques, using cuneiform script on clay tablets to manage the complex bureaucracy of the empire. Thousands of these tablets have survived, giving us an incredible window into their daily lives, their economy, and their government. They wrote royal inscriptions, chronicled historical events, and created some of the world's earliest literary works. The empire was a crucible of creativity and intellect. But as we see time and time again in history, great empires are difficult to maintain. The very size of the Akkadian Empire became a problem. The conquered city-states never fully lost their independent spirit, and internal revolts were a constant threat. Maintaining a large professional army and a complex administration was incredibly expensive, putting a huge economic strain on the state. Then came pressure from the outside. Nomadic groups, known as the Gutians, began to raid the empire's borders from the Zagros Mountains. Ancient texts describe them as a disruptive and barbaric force. A combination of these factors, internal rebellion, economic problems, and external invasions, began to weaken the empire's foundations. After about 180 years, the mighty Akkadian Empire collapsed. Central authority crumbled, and Mesopotamia splintered back into a collection of independent city-states, much like it had been before Sargon. The Gutians established their own rule over parts of the region, and for a time, the grand imperial experiment seemed to be over. So, was it all for nothing? Absolutely not. The Akkadian Empire may have been relatively short-lived, but its legacy is monumental. It created the blueprint for what an empire should be. The idea of a centralized government, a professional bureaucracy, a standing army, and the use of a common language to unite diverse peoples. All of this started with Akkad. Later empires, from the Babylonians and Assyrians in Mesopotamia to the Romans and beyond, all looked back to the model Sargon created. He and his successors fundamentally changed the political landscape of the world. They showed that it was possible to rule over a vast, multi-ethnic territory and to forge a common identity out of diversity. The concept of the divine king, pioneered by Naram-Sin, would be adopted by rulers for millennia to come, from the pharaohs of Egypt to the emperors of Rome. The story of the Akkadian Empire is a timeless lesson in ambition, innovation, and the fragile nature of power. It's the story of how one man's vision transformed a collection of squabbling cities into the world's first empire, setting a precedent that would echo through the corridors of history for thousands of years. It's a reminder that the world we live in today, with its nations and global systems, has its roots in the ancient Mesopotamian plain, in a lost city called Akkad. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please hit that like button and subscribe to Moments in History channel for more stories from our incredible past. Let us know in the comments which ancient empire you'd like us to explore next. See you in the next video.